said, I'm going to give you the best lesson you've had all week. I threw the jacket on the table. I put it into him and I said, always do what you say you're going to do. And I walked away like John Wayne.
What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hersh Rephun, and if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes. My guest today on Truth Tastes Funny is Neil Rogers. Neil has a 37-year career in marketing and sales. We could do a whole show just on sales and on the stuff he learned as a bartender and in the bar business. But I also want to focus today on something called positive activity, which is another project that is very dear to Neil's heart, and it's the practice of making incremental changes in mindset that lead to more positivity. And if you've listened to the show, you know I call it positronics, how important I feel all of that is, and taking you to open-minded solutions by providing creativity, resulting in increased abundance, productivity. There's a multiplier effect, I think, in the positive activity program that's barely noticeable until you've examined your whole journey. And we'll talk a little bit about Neil's journey. We'll talk about positive activity. We'll talk about his books, and we'll have a lot of fun. We're gonna have some laughs because we were just talking before the show about life, and some of its twists and turns that make it hard to laugh, make it hard to find humor. People are going through real things, and we have to sometimes guide them through it. So, where do we find the focus and strength to make those changes? We'll talk about that today. Neil, welcome to Truth Tastes Funny.
Hirsch, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful to have you. So, where does the emphasis on positivity, come from in your life? Where does that
Well,
attitude come from?
let's say it didn't come from my upbringing. We'll start
Okay,
there.
good place to start.
Seventh of eight of a negative Irish Catholic family. It's a challenge to. I'm chipping away at negativity for the last 60 years. So it's been. I'm in my family. I'm really the only. Everybody's been fairly successful, but I'm really the only guy that's been in the people business. From
Yeah.
being in the hospitality business for that period of time, and then been in sales in our own little, and then of course in our own little small business here for the last 29 years. It really came from. It just came through as I got going in that business. Especially behind the bar. You're trying to make people happy. You're giving them an experience. And if you're negative or you come in with a bad attitude or whatever, that's going to reflect poorly on your gratuities.
Well, if
So,
you think about three of the most famous bartenders in history, that would be Sam, Woody, and Coach
yeah,
from Cheers, right?
yeah,
Um, none of them, are negative in the way they counsel their communities.
sure.
They have that infectious positivity that can come from kind of anywhere. Um, let's stick a little bit with your background. Growing up, what were some of the ways in which that negativity would, you know, manifest itself?
Well, first of all, no axe to grind with my parents or my family members. It just
Yeah.
is what it is, and we have casual conversations here and there about the way it was. And like I say to my kids, I did the best I could. We're doing the best I could with the tools we were provided. Now, And so in certain things, I still go back and say, that when that time we talked about this, that probably wasn't a good idea. Or when I walked off the basketball court because you weren't shooting the three that I wanted to shoot. We didn't really need that, right? And I have these conversations. I just have recently had one with my daughter. She goes, "Dad, it's okay." I said, "Okay, good. Just want to let you know I'm aware."
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was more along the line of, today it's so different. I mean, as an example, for me, I went to my mother May of my senior year and said, "Is there anything I should be doing next year?" And of course, and now in this day and age, we've got our kids planned from DNA right up and through, through
Yeah.
whenever. I mean, my 31-year-old just went back to DC after being in Plymouth for 45 days and was devastated when he left at 31, right? So
Yeah.
but it's just the way they operated, the way the communication went or didn't go, right? There was no
Mhm.
Socratic method practiced in the Rogers household, right? So everything it was kind of my way highway routine. My brother tells this story. We walk a lot together. And he tells a story about he went to a Catholic school, which was kind of over hill over dale to get there, and I really didn't quite get. In retrospect, I don't really know why that all transpired, other than the fact that it was free, right?
Yeah.
But it was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which was 8 miles to twisty roads away from where we lived. So it's a 45-minute commute regardless, right?
Yeah.
So he went up to my parents one time and they sat him down and said, "Listen, I really like to tell you about, I think I'd be a much better student if I was to go to Melrose High. I think I'd be a better athlete." He was a high school quarterback, basketball player, better athlete. I just, all in all, I think it would be a more positive experience for me. No,
Yeah.
right? So that's the type of thing, that would go on. You should be doing this. There were no suggestions. I'd be a much better musician today if I wasn't told you should practice the piano,
Right. You're right. Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
there's another side to that. When I was a kid, my older sisters had taken piano lessons and they had all the little busts of Bach and Beethoven, all
Right.
the little prizes they won. And I never wanted to take lessons. And I always played on the piano, tinkered on the piano, even after that. They were like 3 and 5 years older than I was. But when I got to be the age where I would be taking lessons, I was playing piano, but I wasn't interested in lessons. And my mom could have forced me, could have done that thing where they're like, "Well, you're taking lessons." And then maybe I would hate the piano. And she said, "No, the lessons will," and she was a singer and a pianist. And she
Mm.
said, "No, the lessons will just kind of, impede on your creativity. You're doing fine. Just continue." Now the tail end of that is that I can't read music that I would like to at this point read music, or maybe it would be easier, or maybe I would have had more fun. But I don't know. I don't know. I know I appreciated that it was my choice, that it wasn't that I didn't resent the piano. I know that.
Right.
And her fear was that. I don't want him to resent the piano,
Well,
you
that's a true
know.
musician wanting to, foster your creativity, correct? I mean, if
Yeah.
we're if, and I never, for that, I just really couldn't get there. I mean, I don't know, undiagnosed ADD, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I just didn't, um, I wasn't, and overall, I wasn't really interested, to truth be
Right.
told. I mean, when you're playing Somewhere My Love from Dr. Zhivago and you're 13 years old. I mean, there's not a lot of, "Oh, boy, isn't this good?" But now it's a whole nother, now it's a whole nother ball game. I'm just like, I'm trying to learn jazz stuff and whatnot. And, I'm doing it all for my own little satisfaction. Oscar Peterson's safe, I promise you.
Right.
So, um,
Yeah.
so but yeah, so I mean, that's the type of thing. I mean, passive aggressive stuff. I think, that type of stuff, always bringing up things that, if you kept your mouth shut on a Sunday dinner,
Yeah.
because if you happen to say the wrong thing, something come at you from something you did 6 months ago, and it's like, where did that come from? It's
Yeah.
like, so just mind your P's and Q's and whatnot, and everything will be just fine. I had a wonderful adult relationship with my parents. I didn't have a bad relationship as
Yeah.
a youth, but my adult relationship, I mean, I took care of them. Certainly was certainly part of taking care of them to the day they died, both of them. So
Yeah.
it's So it was, and it was a blessing and a pleasure to do it. So, and I know, I mean, and also it's a part of being, giving grace. It's they grew up tough.
Yeah.
My father lost his father when he was 5 or 6, and his mother died when he was 17. What did he know
Wow.
about
Yeah.
raising 8 kids? And oh, by the way, losing the first one.
Yeah.
So and then my mother, from what I understand, my grandmother was brutal, and
Yeah.
disciplinarians and all that stuff because they're all old school Irish coming over you know, and so that's the way it kind of started. But that's when I broke out was really when I started to, yeah. I mean, I was always fairly clever and I can sing a little bit, I can play a little bit, I can dance a little bit, all those little bits of things, and was class clownish, so it was
Yeah.
I had some stuff going, and then I kind of translated that into, when I failed the first time in school, I was still working in the hospitality business, and then I went and somehow I wanted to be a bartender because I thought mainly because I thought it was cool, not
Yeah.
because it was a career move or anything else, but then I realized that when I poured a drink, I gave it to the person and I actually asked them prior, what are you looking for? What are you thinking about today and whatnot? So some sort of probing, right?
Uh-huh.
And they ordered the drink and took a sip and said, wow, that's really good. And I went, well, hold on here. I think I might have found a path here. To
Yeah.
myself, I'm saying this, and because, it was, at that point, my self-esteem being a little low after failing school the first time. Oh,
Right.
by the way, I came back and failed the second time, so that's my badge of honor.
Oh, good. So you made up for it.
Exactly. So, but that did set me on a path to, be in the people business, and so finally someone said to me, I don't know, couple, certainly in the next year or two later, said, have you ever thought about sales? I said, no, I know guys that do sales and they do really well. Maybe that is something I could do, but got to get the degree. And I got
Right.
it. But I got it because now I had a renewed vision
Well, now you
and
had a
purpose.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a reason. You wanted to do it. Um, I always marvel at people who are natural salespeople. I think I'm coming to terms at this late stage with the notion that I probably am a natural salesperson, but that I that what I resist is pushing something on somebody. And that can happen where you actually misread the scenario in that you're thinking that this is something that they don't want, or you're thinking this is something they don't need. If they need it and they ultimately should avail themselves of it, then you're partners in this process. You're not pushing. But if you perceive sales as pushing or deceiving or misleading or leading, yeah, you'll likely have a problem with it then. Um, and so I think I misperceived the role of the salesman, and I think a lot of people do. A lot of people have a certain. What's your outlook on you know what makes a good salesman? What makes a good marketer?
Well, I think it's all, well, as we talked prior to the show, it's all really about the little things. So Jim Rohn, the famous
Yeah.
entrepreneur and motivational speaker, and Tony Robbins' mentor,
Hmm.
said success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying the basic fundamentals, the little things,
Hmm.
right? So as you go through my book, it's the importance of a proper greeting, or being organized, being on time, time management skills, and why these were important in the bar business and as a salesperson. And then things like, well, certainly product knowledge, attitude, aptitude, and appearance. You think it's good not to be clean shaven? You're wrong.
Hmm.
It just isn't. If you're carrying a beard, beautiful, carry a nice trim beard. You got to have the proper attitude. You got to have, so all these things are translatable, from both from a hospitality standpoint, because all business is the hospitality business. So in
Yes.
the
Yeah.
end, I will tell you right now, having known you for about 26 minutes here and 45 minutes the other day, you're a salesman. Because
Yeah.
in salesman, the whole sale or salesperson, the it's not the guy or gal that can sell ice to the Eskimos.
Right. Right.
That's not what it's about. It's relationship development. It's about, if you take the bartender, you walked into the room, you came in for a reason, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that reason is.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have a social drink with a friend, you're looking to kill some time, you're having dinner with your wife, whatever it is. That little probing, that little probing that the bartender or whatever server starts talking to you and gets a sense for why you were here. Now he or she is gonna start putting you in a place where, okay, you're here. Now let me ask you a question. Are you guys seafood lovers or do you like steak? Okay. Now, seafood we got. If you really want steak, we have one on the menu. This has actually happened to me and it's in the book.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you're up for, let me tell you what you need to do. You're gonna need to go through the building here and take a left. And you can go to the steakhouse right there. And that you'll get every cut you need. What did I just do to myself? I lost a customer for a bit, but I gained one for life.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's really about, hospitality is always about, or, so, and again, I'm using hospitality and
Yeah.
salesmanship interchangeably because if you're not hospitable, it's going to be tough for you. If you're just
Mm-hmm.
pushing to sell and make money and whatnot, it's going to show. It's going to show.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, most salespeople can be sold. If somebody's going to slick me and whatnot, I'm not interested. If somebody does something creative, like, I'm sure you get them too every day. Somebody off of
Yeah.
LinkedIn, somebody's, I can do this. And it's always some big number too, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, and I say, and the only way I will ever engage these people is if they show me a little creativity. Yeah, I get 15 minutes
Yeah.
for you. I get 10 minutes for you. So it's all those parts that you got to be moving. So and it's about, it's about having respect for your customer, having respect enough to get dressed for them.
Mm-hmm.
In all these little lessons, life lessons you learn along the way. I remember when I first started selling, when I sold athletic footwear and apparel, we had, we're in and out of every shoe store and sporting goods store and bookstore, up and down. And me was in New England. We wore suits, and at that time they were
Yeah.
three-piece, and with Allen Edmond shoes, because that's how the principals of the organization dressed. So I said, well, I want to be like them because they're very successful. So I would
Yeah.
do that. And so I run it. So about in May, we were down there and down in New Jersey, and for a wedding. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, you guys around? How about a coffee or something on Saturday morning? We got an open morning. My buddy Bill says, why don't you come down to my place? Great. So I took my daughter and my son. I put on cargo shorts, sneakers, whatever I had, just like, I'm going down to have breakfast with actually an old mentor and a guy that I work for and a friend,
Yeah.
triple threat. And so we get there. He's on the 18th floor. He comes down. He comes out of the elevator. There he is. Perfect jeans, perfect shoes, perfect shirt, perfect scully cap. I went, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, now I remember. So I went back. I went back. And that week, I had to go meet a customer before I went to do a workout. Now, prior to seeing Bill and reminding me of those things that I should remember, I would have said, hey, Fitz, I'm going to run for a workout right after this. I just wore my shorts and whatnot. I wouldn't have said it. I would have just brought it. And I said,
Yeah.
no. I put on a nice pair of jeans, nice pair of shoes, polo shirt with my positive activity logo on it. And went and met him. And I carried the other stuff and went to the
Yeah.
gym afterwards. So those are the little things. So, and
Yeah.
the reason why I wrote the darn book was to remind myself of them. And nobody bats 1,000. And there was a perfect example of that because we've become so Zoom oriented and whatnot, and everything's, yes, I've got a collared shirt on. I happen to be in the jeans I wore today, so I mean, but otherwise,
Yeah.
but that's the That's the reason why I wrote the book was sort of the things that I remember. The reason why I did positive activity, Lori, and I did, it's to remember the process that we do every day to keep it going, right? So I think, having said all that, I think what makes a good salesperson. I think communication, process, respect for people's time, so huge. I think humility is big. If something goes wrong, don't blame anybody else.
Yeah.
Figure it out. See what your role was in it. How could you have done better? Very humbling, but it's disarming at the same time. Well, but crying out loud, the truck driver probably didn't take it off the truck like usual. Oh, maybe the picker in the
Right.
in the warehouse did something stupid. Oh, I'm sure that dopey customer service person didn't write it up right. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
Nobody looks good in that, and especially you.
Yeah, I'm so attuned to that now where I can immediately, spot that kind of projection of responsibility onto somebody else, or the fear that you did something wrong, because I relate to it when I was younger. I didn't want to be, I was a good kid, but I didn't want to like spoil my record,
Yeah,
Like I didn't want to screw up and then have it all go to pot, because I had made a mistake or something. But we all make mistakes. We all screw up. We all come home too late, or we don't say where we're going, or we hang out with the wrong kid, or whatever it was. And it was like that fear of disappointing my parents was way more powerful than any kind of stricture that they enforced.
right.
It was more, I didn't want to let them down. And so I feel like I relate to it when I hear people get defensive and start making excuses, and there's automatically there's somebody else that screwed up. And my attitude is, it's okay. It's going to be healthier for you to step up and take some ownership of it, even if you, like you're saying, Neil, even if you do it just to see where you might have had some role in it. you know it's going to be so much healthier for everybody, and the sky isn't going to fall either. It's
And
not going to.
if you take that approach and you did have a hand in it, yes, you're going to be less likely to make that mistake again.
Yeah.
But if you don't do triage on how you operated, and I give you it's a great bar story that I use all the time on that, and it's this guy Dennis Mayer. So I used to work at this place Tia's in Boston. At the time, it was one of the biggest bars in town. It's like a big financial district. It was all suits, beautiful women. If you were not first year it opened up, if you were not 5'10", blonde hair, blue eyed, you were not a cocktail waitress at Tia's, right? That there was that type of gig, right? So, but any troll could get behind the bar and pour. They just wanted quick hands. So anyways, this guy Dennis Mayer who worked with us, really great guy, funny, smart guy. I'm like, what are you doing hanging around with us? I'm like, oh. But anyways, woman comes up to the bar and orders a vodka martini extra dry. Beautiful. So Dennis goes and makes a vodka martini like he's always made his vodka martinis. So she wanted it up. So he ices down the glass, pours the booze, strains it through, puts a twist in it. There's your vodka martini. Takes a sip out of it. She goes, that's not dry enough. Okay. So Dennis walks by me, says, I haven't put a drop of vermouth in a martini yet in my whole life. So
Yeah.
what does he do? He ices down the glass, not in her face, but so she can see it. She sees no green bottle. There's no Martini and
Yeah. Yeah.
Rossi dry vermouth.
Right.
Pours it, up glass, all set, ice down, boom, takes a sip. That's the one. Same drink. Now, what did we learn here? We learned here that if Dennis, made a big deal of it with her in front of the crowd, Now we're into it, right?
Yeah.
He's got 2 ounces of booze. He's going to use in another drink.
Yeah.
So nobody loses, right? And she's happy. Nobody's the wiser. But he could have got into it and made a big deal of it, and then everybody knows.
Yeah.
You know, lady, I've never put a drop of driving with her. Oh, no,
Right.
okay, here we go. Okay,
Right.
because she's going to be
Right.
happy with getting challenged,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And that's the idea, is this kind of unspoken uh eloquence and grace that transpires where, you know, you're being seen, you're being addressed, the time is being taken to make your drink, you know, and there's no overt disrespect shown. He's
Yep,
sparing her the argument, but it's clear he's not going to use any vermouth.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and what do you come into a bar for anyway, but to feel uh, well treated and regarded and heard, just in that little way, and and to benefit in some way from the expertise of the bartender, you know. And I honestly believe this, as someone who has been in my share of bars all over the world and had my share of martinis, and good and bad, perfect and not perfect, um, but then to learn something, you know,
right.
there's a beauty in learning something from someone else and in their sharing their experience. So that may be a kind of a heady way to look at it, but that's that's the relationship business. That's why your analogy is so apropos, because that is that is what it is about. And to our conversation earlier, age doesn't matter either. There are young people who have learned a great deal and also have a perspective that we don't have and that we cannot have by virtue of our age and experience. And so there's a lot to offer there. We have experiences they have not had and won't have, and have a background and a knowledge base that they can learn from. It's this incredible opportunity to exchange information, um, in a area of mutual respect. And I think that's where the positive activity concept that you and Lori have kind of been bringing forth is so tied to the principles of sales and marketing, as share them, as you exercise them.
Yeah, it's the sum total of our life, really, is what it is. And the same principles that we use, positive activity doesn't isn't just in business. We have a special needs son. We got a 34-year-old man with autism, non-speaking autism. He's what they would call profound.
Hmm.
And a buddy of mine once said to me, he said, "Hey, Neil, I read your book and I really liked your book. Is that how you did the other stuff too?" I said, "Yeah, same stuff, same process. You know, we had a foundation for special needs education for 18 years that we called it a positive, proactive parent organization to engage and collaborate with educators to make their lives and subsequently our kids' lives better."
Yeah.
You know, what a concept. Well, most people, you'd think like, wow, that sounds really great. Well, it was, and it worked out really well for all of us that were involved. But so many people just wanted, because what we said, you come to our meetings, you leave your grievances at the door. We're not here to talk
Yeah.
about who isn't doing what and why aren't they doing this and this should be done. You can have those conversations outside of this organization. And it doesn't mean that I never had those conversations. I did. Well, why didn't they do that? But in that organization, we kept it positive because then we could be proactive, we could be collaborative, we could see things. We were in creativity. So I remember going to this meeting one time, and it was around the desk, with I don't know, 15, 20 people there. And we have been talking about instead of sending these teachers on a junket, one teacher on a junket and spending two or $3,000 to do it, why don't we just to go to a conference? Why don't we do a conference right here? So we started talking about doing a conference. So, and people would, things would come up where there's a hospitality program at Nashua North. There's two high schools in this town. Really? Okay. There's a marketing program up in Nashua North. Interesting. Want to take a stab on who did the culinary and who did the marketing for our little event? The kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not brain surgery. I'm not claiming I'm not the next
Yeah.
Elon Musk, but it was like, you got those kids over there doing that? I'll tell you what, we'll pay all the costs. We don't want to take their budget. Whatever costs there are, they're volunteers. We'll pay all that, all the food stuff. We fed 300 teachers, paraprofessionals, and gave them a full day conference, fed them breakfast and lunch, and gave them CE credits for nothing,
Yeah.
zero. And what happened
Yeah.
was the whole conference cost $3,000. Three. So the same amount of money they would have sent, they would have spent to send one person to someplace for 3 nights in some sort of conference, and then that person would have to come back and disseminate it all to other people, right? And and what happened was they said, okay, we'll give 1,500. All right, we'll give 1,500. Done. It was just a deal, right?
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
just that. So in that and this will ring true to you. We were talking about piano and whatnot earlier. So when I was back, I started taking vocal. I'm on 5 years now. I've been singing kind of and playing kind of all my life, right? So I wanted to get
Yeah.
a little bit more meat on the bones, and so it was during you know what, and I won't say the word. So our friend post something
Right.
about I'm singing and playing. I called her up and said, "Where are you doing this? Where are you doing it?" She goes, "I'm doing it here." I said, "Give me the number." Gave me the executive director's number. I've been with her for 5 years. About two
Wow.
years into it, she goes, "Neil, you got to play and sing." All right, how do I do that? Because I've always just played the melody in my right, and the chords on the left, and all that, right?
Yeah.
Well, you gonna play the chord on the right. We're gonna play the bass note, the root on the left. All right, boom. So what I did was, in true positive activity fashion, I went down with a positive attitude and a creative mindset, and then I had a 90-day plan of productivity, which was I had I did scales, back to scales. I did circle of fifths. I did 2 5 1s. I did these are all chords to those folks who aren't musicians out there.
Hmm.
And I did I did if you wanna- th- then I did 3 vocal exercises, and then I played and sang the songs I was working on. 90 days later, in front of 200 people singing Burt Bacharach's "A House Is Not a Home."
Yeah. Right on. Well, and
No,
that's it. Yeah.
yeah. So it applies everywhere. Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to be productive at, get a good mindset, be creative, be in solution mode. We got curveballs last week with Craig. He's 34 years old. Lori came home in a lather because he had 4 cavities. All right.
Hmm.
How did that happen? He doesn't eat any sugar. He doesn't, he drinks nothing but water. Well, it turns out they were his wisdom teeth. They're
Oh,
they're
okay.
never gonna get clean. They're never. And they told us that a few years ago. You're gonna have to take these out. So now we got, all right, let's go into mode. We got to figure out how to do this, and it's all set up now. We didn't
Yeah.
lose it. We said, all right, how are we gonna put this thing together? We found because he's Medicaid funded, and
Yeah.
we found someone that would do it, and we vetted them, made sure because I'd pay out of pocket otherwise, and but he but yeah, so it just works every time,
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
every
Well,
time.
we haven't let the audience know, if you would, Neil, where to get your book, um, and where to find you.
So the best place to find both, all of us, both Lori, me, and the book, is to go to positiveactivity.net.
Okay.
Positiveactivity.net. You'll read all about our little blogs, and we get doing a lot of very creative blog posts. We're very happy with our blog posts. I just did one the other day for that for the cycle against suicide I rode for as a one on being kind, because you never know what somebody's going through. So it was a little
Yeah.
toast to my buddy that couldn't overcome his struggles. But those are the types of things we put up there, and all things like, I get into beer plans. Do you know what beer plans are?
No.
Beer plans are the ones that you make at 11 o'clock at night after a few beers.
Oh,
We need to get together.
that's fun.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's oh my goodness, yeah, yeah, and then it never happens. So, do we have a moment for one more story?
Yes, we do. I was going to
Okay.
ask if you wanted to close with a story.
I think you'll like.
Uh,
I think the
okay.
gang will like this story because it's a good one.
Okay.
Number one, we've already talked about. We talked about one of the most important things is humility and taking ownership. One of the thing that one thing that I did last September, I was at a sales meeting, and number one, I was there to listen to the speakers and see how they operated. And then the other one was just immerse myself in whatever the content was. So, I meet some young guys and young people just getting started. We're, because I'm in the Hall of Fame in the company for sales, and uh, and participation. It's more than just that. And so, and the last gig was at the Harley Davidson Museum. So that's where the awards banquet and all that's going to be, right? So we and the whole thing was, the theme was to wear something with biker like. Well, I didn't bring
Okay.
anything. But as I'm walking out of our trade show, because we're in the swag business, all the vendors are there was a coat there, a jacket, and it had all biker logos on it, dye sublimated, which means those people don't know that it's dyed into the material. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really, it's
Mm-hmm.
really cool. So I looked at it and I said, "Hey, what are you gonna do with that jacket?" He goes, "I don't know. Take it home. I don't know." So what do you want for it? He goes, "How about 35 bucks?" Fine. He goes, "Nah, just give me a card. Do a deal with me." All right, I'll do that too. All right. So anyways, I grab the jacket. I go to the show. And this guy, Kid Taylor, comes up to me, kid 30, 28, 9, 31. I don't know what he says. And he says, "Hey, Neil, that jacket, that's the bomb." I looked at him and said, "Taylor, I will never wear this again." He goes, "Can I have it?" I said, "You certainly can." All right. So the night goes on. Neil's in bed by 10. Who knows how long Taylor's staying out at 28 years old, right?
Right.
So the next day I go down to the breakfast. I bring the jacket with me. So I'm sitting there and I see him over there sitting by himself. I think he was by himself, a couple of people. And I walked over and I had the jacket behind me. I said, "Taylor, great show, huh? A lot of good speakers, a lot of good content. Learned a lot, didn't you?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah, I did, Neil." I said, "I'm going to give you the best lesson you've had all week." I threw the jacket on the table. I put it into him and I said, "Always do what you say you're going to do." And I walked away like John Wayne.
Yeah.
So that's the whole
Nice.
no beer plans post that you'll see on the site.
Right. Right.
Be
Yeah. Oh, there's,
reliable is what we're saying. Don't be that person. Show up on time. Be on time. Don't get time named after you. Oh boy, it's Smith time. Those are the people that are
yeah.
always, that
Right.
you're always waiting for. Because
Yeah.
guess what? Because in the end, I mentioned this before, and I think it means mention. It deserves mention again. That shows, and this is not any type of revelation. It shows respect for the people that you're working with. It just does.
Yeah.
No, nobody bats 1,000. But if you becomes a chronic situation, you're gonna be a footnote.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
That's all I got today, Hersh. Well, I could keep going all day on this stuff.
My
It's my
my
favorite subject.
my summation, Neil, from my point of view, and this just popped into my head. I don't know why, but I thought, humility is easy, hubris is hard. And the reason I say that is because it's easy to be responsible that way, to get in that mindset where you're going to deliver on the things you say you're going to do. Once you're doing that stuff, it isn't it's harder to be a bullshit artist and to just be that person where it's you talk about that so and so time. It's also like, oh, he blanked me,
Right.
meaning that person that you're naming, he pulled a blank,
Right. Yeah.
that person that you can't rely on, that person that has that reputation for blowing smoke up your ass and then not delivering on it. It's like, it's harder to be that person. That person may not realize it really, but it's harder to be that person. It's easier to be that person that kind of stands up and comes through. because you're constantly training for it. You're constantly in practice.
You know, be the one people count on. Be the one
Yeah.
people count on. I mean, that's all. But whether it's personally or professionally, you know, you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care. But I mean, what did it? I know I mentioned I had to go to a funeral this morning. Well, I was only going to go to the wake last night,
Yeah.
but then I saw how devastated my buddy was, and it was his son. Even though the kid was problematic and all that, I said, no, I need to stay. And so I just,
Yeah.
what did it cost me? Another night? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. I own the place, and we had a nice, so it was good. So, but yeah, and he appreciated it, and I think that's part of being counted on. I mean, if you see someone hurting like that, send a note. If I say one thing about, my little gig about the, no, you never know what somebody's going through. If you haven't heard from somebody in a while, just send them a text. No right, wrong. Don't overthink it. Hey, how you doing? I was just thinking of you. Whoa.
Yeah.
Can't imagine what that might do for somebody. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep.
Good stuff, Neil.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I'm so glad
So
we
fun.
did this.
Absolutely. Me too.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.